Mm, ooh. Let's begin.
Let us begin.
What's up, everybody? What's up, Warren?
Hello, can you hear me?
What's going on, Warren?
I'm good. How the devil are you?
I'm pretty good. Pretty good.
Good. I'm glad it was the same link. I was like looking around. I was like, oh, wait, I'll try the same link. Hey, it works.
We make it as simple as possible.
No, that is good. When the time dependent ones, yeah, can be a little annoying when you know you're signing back into the same thing. You're like, why? But so this is good. Yeah, simple is good. It
Simple.
fits my brain.
Me too.
I
Me
was
too.
able to wear my Giants hat confidently for the first time in I don't know how long after they won last night. I don't know if
I'm about to say I'm so out of it. Well,
yeah,
who did they beat?
they beat the Packers last night, which is like
Nice.
um
Old
they
school
haven't
rivalry.
they haven't beat anybody in a long time, so I finally got to break it out.
Wear it
Oh,
with
they
Hey,
are.
pride for 1 week.
What'd you say?
Wear it with pride for
Yeah.
1 week.
It's very rare.
how many games are left in the season?
Was it? I think it's week 13, so I think there's only 4 weeks, maybe.
Four more
Someone, I'm
games,
sure
just
someone
five
will
and
correct
eight.
me. Week
Five
14.
and eight. Can you get what's the point to get into the next stage, the
The
playoffs?
to get to the playoffs, I think the Giants are only one game out now, which is crazy because their record is
5 and 8.
yeah, 5-8. I think they're only one game out. So that speaks to how bad the NFL has been this year.
Us
No, I
having
think that's good. I think that's good. I don't know anybody here follows football or soccer as we call it, as you call it. Um, the Premier League is like so much money in it now. It's so dominant compared to the other
Yeah.
leagues in the world that what happened is you used to have four top teams that always win. Then it became six. This is out of 20 teams. The four now. Now it's like, gee, almost anybody could beat anybody, and
Yeah.
I think it's better. I get a little bit bored. It's like I love Formula One, but at the moment, Red Bull have this car which is about second and a half a lap faster than any other car. So you could stick your grandmother in it and they'll win.
Yeah.
And it's
I
just making it.
watched I got into
Carry
F1. Yeah, I got into F1 this year, and then I started watching it and was like Max Verstappen, Max Verstappen, Max Verstappen, and then I was like, all right, well,
Yeah, but it
guess
was
I'll
Max. At first, it was he was splitting it with him and Perez, and
yeah,
Perez is a nice guy, but not a great racing driver. And suddenly
yeah,
he's winning races. Like maybe the cars, you know what I mean? It's a second and a half a lap faster than any other
yeah,
car.
I am hoping for a little bit more parity in F1
Yeah,
in the future.
because 2 seasons back when there was that sort of contentious thing with them changing the rules at the end, allowing Max to win, the Red Bull was half a second faster than Mercedes, but it was still neck and neck to the last race. So you can get away with half a second a lap, but a second and a half is like it's just yeah.
I could win that. Throw me in there. I'd be
I mean,
fine.
obviously Perez is a good driver. Don't get me wrong, but he's no better than anybody else on the track. So it's
Yeah,
pretty much anybody. Yeah, it's a shame, and of course they're bought by Millennium Group, the US company, to try and bring it over to America, and the numbers have gone up a little bit because they put a lot of money into it, but overall it's down about 20% from the year before, which was down about 20%. It's people want to see real competition. So I think it's kind of cool. Getting back to your Giants, it's cool to see
yeah,
that they still have a chance because that means that there's a lot of people invested, and we love our sports. You know what I mean? We're invested
that's
in it.
true.
We're going to succeed. I much prefer that than when just one team
Yeah,
has all the best players or has the best car or whatever and just dominating.
yeah,
This Drive to Survive documentary has kind of been a huge thing over in the US, so we might
Yeah,
actually start caring about F1, which means maybe Haas will finally start getting some money from US
yeah,
sponsorships. I would love
yeah,
to see Haas do well. Come on.
yeah. I agree. I agree. Yeah. No, I agree. Well, Michael Andretti's in next year. So,
Wait, he's
not as a driver, but as a team owner.
oh really?
Yeah, yeah. So we're going to have another full American team in there as well. It's owned by an American company. The Millennium Group owns it. It's going to finally become, but it's just, yeah, I don't know. They got to even it out. There's one thing that's good about American sports in general is they do try their darndest to make sure that there's a level playing field. Hence, like something I didn't really understand, but when I first moved to the US, so like, the draft picks, the worst team gets picked first.
Yeah.
But that's genius. It's genius. You would think, oh, but the ones that winning all the money. No, it's like, give everybody the chance. And I think I think that means that a guy like you can wear your hat and be like proud that your team won, and it's a big deal. Yeah.
That's how Roger Goodell, that's how the commissioner gets me to still tune into his games, and that's how they sell their advertisements, is because any given Sunday I get to break out the Giants hat.
We decided
they know what they're doing.
We decided not to fix the mix today. We're just starting our F1 podcast.
Yeah. Welcome.
So I think we're talking a similar philosophy. I mean, it's to me, the reason when I started Produce Like a Pro is because at the time when I started it, the big channels were Graham, Recording Revolution, who was, ultimately teaching beginners and people. When I say beginners, I mean people that were just literally like plugging in a microphone for the first time. And then, of course, there was Dave Pensado, and his was, for want of a better word, very elite, very like, hey, you're amazing. No, you're amazing. No, it was all, would watch the videos, and I was like, where's the connection between Graham's people, Dave's people? There was like nothing in the middle. So it's a similar philosophy. I feel like, most of the greatest music ever made didn't come from, there's always exceptions, but didn't come from like massive privileged backgrounds with people with tons of money and like whatever, it came from, people pushing against things. So I think anything that levels the playing field, and allows people to, get access to education, and equipment now at completely affordable prices, like we were talking about yesterday, is just huge. It's an absolutely massive thing because, John Lennon was an orphan, basically. His mother gave him up. His dad left. Paul McCartney's family were about as working class as you can get, even by poor Northern English standards. And, these people didn't come from like, tons of money, and they had to create something out of nothing. And I think that, we're in such a great place. So I think that's what I like about what American sports does really well. What I dislike about Formula One at the moment is it just feels like it's Red Bull have more money. You know what I mean? They have it's hard not to like Lewis over at Mercedes for me, because, he grew up pretty poor. His dad worked 3 jobs at one stage to make enough money to help put him through, because he got into karting when he was super young, and he started winning trophies, beating kids 3 or 4 years older than him by the time he was like 7 or 8. It's hard not to love that and that sort of appeal. And as much as, we know Max Verstappen's a good driver, he was born into it, where his dad was already a multi-millionaire, Formula One driver, and, he got all of the privilege. So I wish they could level the playing fields a little bit and allow other people to get in, rather than sort of coming in because they've got a lot of money,
I'm sure
my goal is to work in as many F1 analogies as possible as we're
I was going to say, I'm sure there's a ton of people here in the chat that probably have heard that very same narrative, where it's like, you've got to have $1 million studio. You have to have the SSL console. You have to have this microphone. You have to have like all of these things. And it's just, it's more so a function of, it's just experience. The people who worked with those types of gear had a lot of experience, and they put in their 10,000 hours, but that doesn't mean it was the gear that did it. It was the experience and the time that they put in. And I'm sure a lot of the people in the chat here are here for that very reason.
Yeah. I was saying yesterday, I was looking at some other YouTubers' channels, and because it's now like 100 new ones coming up every day. It's crazy how much stuff is coming up. And I'm looking at, like I was saying, looking at these guys, and they've got like tens of thousands of dollars worth of equipment. And I was like, I did eventually get all of this really great gear, but I'd already made a #1 album before I had 1/10 of the amount of gear they had.
Yeah. Crazy.
It's crazy. You know, we did How to Save a Life on a tax Scorpion. It cost me $750. And I was using a very 10-year-old used Pro Tools system on a used Apple G4, which I bought for about $300, which never ran properly. And that's how, that's how we made the record. So it's really weird to see, people, I get it. Gear is great. I love gear. I love all that stuff. But, I understand the romance of all of this. I mean, we're all here because we love music. Everybody here that's, come here to sort of learn is here because ultimately we love this. We're so passionate about it. And that is 90% of the job, to be honest. You've got to love it because it can be thankless more often than not. You can work with some of the most talented people and they might take you for granted. And then you can work with other people that heap praise upon you. You just don't know where it's going to come from. But the thing that keeps you going is that unwavering love of wanting to be creative and make music.
Yeah, absolutely. And I explain it and using a different word. I call it obsession.
Yeah, that's probably right. Yeah. Yeah.
But 100% agree.
What a smooth
Well,
segue,
Caleb. Yep, Caleb. Good segue, meaning Warren stopped talking and it's like Caleb take over.
Me too.
All very true, though. There's a lot of power and limitation. You don't need to be chasing gear. You just have to refine your craft and keep your passion up about it. I think it's really valuable.
Absolutely.
Talk a lot about that. So welcome everyone back, though, to Fix the Mix Challenge Day 2. You've come back again. I'm so glad. And there's many of you who have been posting in the school group your assignments and asking questions and different things. I love to see that. It's fantastic. Welcome back to Day 2. In terms of introductions, if you weren't here yesterday, my name is Caleb Lovelace, Director of Education for Mastering.com. We have Mr. Jake Codeweiss below me. He's one of the mentors in the program. We have Warren Hewart, who needs no introduction. He's the man. He's joining us for a couple hours today and just hanging out. And Michael Gilbride, the General Manager of Mastering.com. He's the reason you're all here, sending out the emails and texts and harassing you with all that sort of media.
I got you. I got you here.
You're here because of him. So yesterday, if you were here, you had an opportunity to practice what we were talking about. And the band, by the way, Local Kin, was nice enough, I hope you noticed in the school community, to allow us to use their tracks. So we did post those yesterday in school. So I know many of you have downloaded those and you've been able to follow along with the very tracks that we're using for this webinar this week. So very nice gesture, by the way, for the band to allow the tracks to be used. Use those correctly. Don't share those. Those are just for you for practice. Honor that band. Maybe even go give them a follow, give them a like or something.
Yeah, that's super cool of them to do. I don't believe this song is released.
Right, it's not released yet. So
yeah, so really kind of keep it close, guys, if you could, please.
Yep.
While you're working on it, practicing it. Okay.
So the assignment yesterday was all about session prep, editing, and volume balance. You were to use no plugins. You were only to use volume and panning. How did that go? Was it interesting? What did you learn from it? What did you take away from that? Did you have a good time with it? Did it change your mindset? What is it that we focused on yesterday? The big picture concept, the power of volume. I do believe volume is your most powerful tool as a mix engineer. It's the thing that will influence your mixes the most, is proper use of volume and panning. We leaned into that yesterday. But it's also about mindset. When we do things in the right way, when we focus on the right things at the right time, when we prep things first, when we edit things in the right time, when we even just by using volume in the right time and seeing how far we can push the mix just with volume, we're really setting ourselves up for success. We're working with a ton of intention. We're focusing on the right stuff. And then like I said yesterday, as Jake was going through and just mixing with volume yesterday, he was making little notes, what things couldn't be solved with just volume alone. He was able to take little notes. And then today, he is not directionless in entering into things like EQ and compression and all the other tools that we're going to use today. He has notes. He knows the things, at least a place to start. So you're working not only with more intention yesterday, but with more intention today as well, and tomorrow. So that's very cool. And it's more efficient. We're avoiding our natural tendency to get distracted sometimes, to squirrel, right? We hear this EQ problem, and then an hour later, we're still adjusting the EQ problem sometimes. We're keeping things compartmentalized for the sake of our own efficiency and speed. And as I work with a lot of talented engineers in our program, so many of them, the key to them overcoming kind of this place they're stuck at just boils down to working faster, staying in the creative space longer, and being able to work faster so that you can be in the objective mindset for as long as possible in a meaningful way. It's really just about speeding up your process and working with more efficiency and precision. And then we also talked about some mastering mindsets. Wasn't that a cool thing to be able to jump in and use some metering tools to connect what we were hearing with our ears to what we were with these tools seeing with our eyes? It's such a useful tool for many of you to learn and to start to connect these two things together. And we'll do some more of that today as we go forward. The goals for today, as I mentioned yesterday, we're going to finally dive into using our EQs, compressors. We're going to focus on and understand better when and why to control frequencies, when and why to control dynamics. We're also going to start talking about spatial processing. We're going to give you a guide for how to do that in a very compartmentalized way. We'll explain that more in a minute. And then we'll dive into some more mastering mindsets. Again, we'll do it like yesterday, a little later in the session. Once Jake gets kind of done with his demonstration today, we'll jump back. We'll assess it again with some of these mastering tools to see how we can learn from them and how that will affect our mixes. So should be a lot of fun today. I'm excited. It's all about the instrumentals today. No vocals today. We're doing that tomorrow. Tomorrow's pure vocal day. Today, it's all about the instrumentals.
Hey, Caleb, real quick, can I just make sure everybody, if you're not in the school group, if you want the replays, the recordings for yesterday, you can access those in the school group, SKOOL. If you're not in that, I'm going to post a link to join that on the right there. So if you're looking for recordings, replays, today's recording will be posted in the school group. We post all the updates on future Fix and Mixes and everything like that. It's completely free. So I'll keep posting that link in the chat, SKOOL. Make sure you sign up for that group so you can get access to the replays and recordings.
Yep. You want to be in there. It's a great place to find a community of like-minded people who are all kind of pushing for the same thing. And that's something we're really proud to facilitate for all of you. So definitely jump in there and participate, Also, if you haven't yet changed your chat settings to everyone, just click over.
I guess that includes me. I was posting the link into hosts and panelists, so I'm glad you said that.
Hey, Michael. Hey, Michael, if you could just go to your chat settings right there and change it to everyone instead of hosts and panelists.
General manager.
That's another demerit.
Emphasis on the general.
A demerit. I love that word. Did you ever get any demerits growing up, Warren?
I don't know about demerits. I don't remember them. I do. I remember just being marked down. But yeah, I suppose that is a demerit.
My name on the board.
Demerit. That's a demerit.
So let's dive into mixing. I want to give you, just like I did yesterday, a few high-level concepts to focus on today, and then Jake's going to jump into the demonstration. We'll show you what we're talking about, but I want you to focus on a few high-level concepts. Again, if you're more of a beginner, keep writing stuff down. There's Googleable stuff. There's stuff you can YouTube. Just focus on the big picture concepts and getting the mindset right. That's the most valuable thing you can take away with a 3-day webinar like this. It's just changing a few mindsets and then exploring what that means for your process. So first thing I want to talk about is the problem that is masking. How many of you struggle with masking? How many of you know what it is? Warren struggles with masking. If you
I know what it is.
Oh. Well, I mean, We've all struggled with it, right?
I
It's
struggle
one
with
of those things that has,
Yeah, and I struggled with it. Yeah.
it's definitely like a dirty word. It starts to give you a bad feeling when you hear that word. If you don't know what masking is, in any mix you'll probably ever work on, there are places within the frequency spectrum. We talked about the frequency spectrum yesterday, if that's kind of a new concept to you, where multiple instruments are sharing frequencies, and oftentimes in a way that might be causing buildups in certain frequencies. It sure happens a lot in the mids and low mids. You'll find in many mixes, sometimes in the high range, sometimes in the lows, but oftentimes it's really a low mids problem. If we go to the PAS analyzer that we taught you yesterday, you can see that this is indicating to us, it may not be a problem, we would hear it with our ears, but it's indicating to us that it might be a problem right around that, 200 to 500 range. There's that kind of mountain of buildup happening there. That means there may be multiple instruments that just have a lot of information in that frequency range, and they're all kind of melding together and masking each other and building up and causing problems. And for those of you who know what masking are, have you ever had the issue where sometimes you are focused on fixing the masking problems, but then when you go out to the car, it still sounds muddy? Why is that? Okay. What's going on that there's still this problem sometimes, even when we're focused on it? Well, here's the mindset that I think you can take away that will really help you approach this in a way that can solve the problems. I think the biggest thing you need to understand is to think more globally and not locally about your mix when it comes to these frequencies. What does that mean? Thinking globally means I really only care about how the song sounds together. Thinking locally means when I solo stuff, I'm worried about how that instrument sounds on its own. Globally is more important than locally. Locally can cause us problems sometimes. And what I mean by that is sometimes when we go in to make EQ moves to carve out masking problems or whatever we're doing, we'll solo that track, we'll go in with our EQ, we'll start making these moves, and once in a while we start getting freaked out. We start taking too much out, and on its own, in solo, that instrument starts sounding kind of thin or bad or whatever it is. We're trying to fix those masking problems, but all of a sudden it starts sounding thin, so we back off, we retreat, and we go, oh, whatever. And then later we realize that there's a problem. We hear it in the car, that the mud is still there. That's not how we should be approaching EQ. I don't care about what it sounds like on its own. I only care about how it sounds like in relationship to everything else. Is it working? So sometimes what you'll find is that you need to be a little bit more extreme with some of your cuts than you think you do. You can't get scared when you solo it and make these moves, and maybe you don't even solo at all. Maybe you need to hear it in context. It might scare you if you have to do a move like this once in a while. You're going to go, what am I doing? But really the way to solve masking is to go and find these elements that are competing with each other, and you need to put it together like a puzzle piece. You need to decide which parts of each of those sounds that are competing with each other are the most important. Which parts are relevant? Which parts are important to that sound? That's what I'm thinking locally about. Because when I put them together, if I find parts that work and I carve out the rest, and I make sure that every part of the frequency spectrum is accounted for, there's something that happens to the listener's ear that's very important for us to understand. Okay? Maybe I'm doing this. And so I've carved out frequencies, a whole bunch on 3 different instruments in this case, pretend that they're all competing with each other. This is very hyperbolic. You'll never do it this extreme probably, but I'm just making a point. Each of these on their own would sound weird. But when you put them together, what happens is that all the frequencies are accounted for. And so what the ear hears, it's a psychoacoustic effect, a psychoacoustic kind of magic thing that happens to the listeners. Since all those frequencies are accounted for, you hear all those instruments as sounding like they should. Maybe the synth is kind of taking up one part and the guitar is taking up another part, but you kind of hear both as being as they should be. You hear those frequencies being accounted for, so they sound full. They don't sound as thin and lifeless as they probably sounded in solo when you were just looking at them locally. The point of all of this is the audio is greater than the sum of its parts. And sometimes we need to carve out more than we think we need to. We need to make choices and put it together like a puzzle piece. Which parts are most important? Which parts can I get rid of to really carve out enough of those problem frequency areas that when you get into the car, it doesn't sound muddy. Jake's going to show you some demonstration of that today. Kind of a hard thing to explain, but really it's very quite, this is one of those things that you hear an amateurish mix, it's going to be that there's these buildups, this muddiness that they're not able to get rid of. And it's because they're getting too scared to do what it takes to get rid of it. So let's focus on that today when it comes to frequencies. The other thing I want to talk about today is the power of clipping and limiting. I know a lot of you probably use compressors all the time. I did for a long time, pretty much only used compressors. One of the things Jake taught me actually is the power of the clipper and limiter. The way to think about it as he's using them today, and he's kind of going to give a master class, hopefully has an opportunity to with this song, to use a lot more clippers and limiters to control dynamics. So when he's just controlling dynamics, he's not reaching for a compressor most of the time. He's reaching for clippers and limiters. Why? Because they're faster to get to where he wants to go. Clippers and limiters are usually one knob, one button, one little dial. And if it's all about just controlling dynamics, just controlling some transients, that type of thing, the clipper is much faster to get you where you want to go. And you'll see what he's talking about with that today. It's pretty magic. Why would then he use compressors? He uses them a little bit differently. Sometimes there's something that needs more options, that it's a more nuanced thing that he's trying to do. So he'll use a compressor, but most of the time it's about enhancement. It's about expanding dynamics. That's when he'll use a compressor, is when he wants to expand dynamics. So he's going to give you an example of both today and see if some of this fits into your workflow. Controlling dynamics, clipping and limiting, compression, expanding dynamics.
Something to add to that too, Caleb.
Yep, go ahead.
Another reason that I like to use compression anyway in my process is some compressors just have a unique character about them, or a very, very kind of special sound that only that model can actually do, right? So there's a character aspect to that too. It's almost like that, your paintbrushes and your colors, right? Just different colors to kind of texturize the sound with. So yeah, LA2A, 1176, all these have a very specific kind of character and specific kind of sound, right? It's just driving it through the circuitry and making magic happen, adding some harmonics and some tastiness. So I'll use them that way as well.
100%. In fact, I just did a master this morning for a client, my business partner, Dane, who works at mastering.com as well as a mentor. We were talking about it, and he's like, man, there's just so much life in this master. It was really great. And what was interesting is I almost did nothing to the master, but I did run it through some analog circuits. I used some analog compressors and things, but very subtly. What he was hearing was just all the life that gear was emulating and bringing into it, the character that was coming out of those tools. It was enough for him to like hear a difference in the life of the song. So a lot of times that can totally be a great enhancement. I almost did nothing to the master. I did like maybe 3 dB of compression total and limiting total, and
just drove it through the circuitry.
Did like 1 EQ move.
You're listening to BBC Sounds.
You're about to listen to Death of a Code Breaker.
Hey,
New episodes will be released weekly wherever you get your
Warren. That's coming.
Yeah,
through.
sorry. Something played in the background. I forget I'm wearing open backs.
Comes to the computer too. So the last thing I want to talk about today is spatial processing. We're going to set that up. Why is it so hard to get right? This is another one of those elements, and probably why I choose to talk about it. It's another thing like masking, where you can really tell an amateurish mix really quickly by how the spatial processing is used. Overuse of spatial processing just really can kill a mix fast. And I think a lot of people use it too much sometimes because they're using it to cover up problems. They're hearing issues that they hate about the mix, and there's something nice about reverbs and delays that kind of covers up. It puts frosting on the cake that's full of nails. That's a weird analogy, but just run with it. Take that and just kind of go into the future, and we'll pretend.
I haven't heard you use. Yeah, I haven't heard you use that one before.
It's a nice way to smooth stuff over. And so sometimes if we're hearing problems, instead of fixing the problems, we cover it up, the frosting then on the cake full of nails, right? And so it gets used too aggressively. So how can we approach spatial processing in a way that is the right amount and in more a professional way? So we set up a system for you. You can try to adopt this if you'd like, put it on, try it on for size, see if it works for you. But our goal with it is to do two things. First, we want to be consistent with the emotional scene. And this is kind of maybe this is where Caleb gets a little wooey or something like that. But I think we're very connected to spaces acoustically. I think we can tell the sound of our house. We can tell the sound of a forest. We can tell the sound of our grandma's house that we love. We can tell the sound of certain places because there is an intrinsic emotion connected, I think, with different types of spaces acoustically. And a lot of times I think one of the things we disconnect from is using a type of reverb or delay that just doesn't fit the emotion of the song. It just seems to be disconnected from it. It doesn't seem right. It's not melding. And so as mix engineers, we need to make sure that we're considering the emotion of the track. We need to make sure that we're picking these reverbs and delays or whatever we're using in a way that enhances the emotion and doesn't distract from it. And that's kind of, again, wooey, but I think it's something to think about. And there are times I find myself picking different ones because it just seems more right. It just fits the space. It fits the vibe of the song. It fits the emotion. So that's the first thing we're thinking of. But probably more important is we're going to set up a system that's going to allow you to use spatial processing in a way that's not too diverse, but just diverse enough. Let me explain to you what this means. We find that if you use spatial processing in a way that's not diverse enough, everything starts to sound too much the same. So if you're only using, for example, one reverb on every instrument and the vocal on the whole track, you're using just one reverb on it. There's just it's almost like the band singing in a venue or a tunnel or somewhere like that, and it's just not professional sounding. It just sounds amateurish or karaoke-ish. It's not that the professional polish that you're looking for. Whereas if people use too many different types of sounds, everything can sound disjointed. But there's a sweet spot in between where you've used enough diverse types of reverbs and delays to where everything has enough separation from itself that it doesn't sound too much oneness or too karaoke or too live, but not so much that it's disjointed. Does that make sense? Diverse enough to create separation, but it's not so diverse that it's disjointed. So we'll show you how to set that up today. We'll show you how to set up some spatial processing tools to do what we think is kind of the sweet spot for this. We're looking for that sweet spot in spatial processing. Again, emotional scene. We're trying to connect with the emotional scene, and we're trying to find the sweet spot between not diverse enough and too diverse. Keep that in mind as Jake demonstrates today. All right. Those three things is what I want to focus on today. It's time to turn it over to Jake.
Woo, Jake!
You guys ready to go? Give me a 343,922 in the chat if you're ready to move. Nice. Nice. That looks good enough to me. Let's move forward here.
I'll be right back.
Of course. All right. You guys seeing the DAW okay? One's in chat? Seeing the DAW? Yep. Okay, cool. So let's play a little bit of this track, see where we left off yesterday.
So start.
I know it all too well. My body is under your spell. She speaks a sorry lie, and he sees her weary sighs fall out from what is now an unsure ground. Hold out, just hold out your fires, and hide all, just hide your desires. Stand your ground, just hold your ground. Just hold out your fires, and hide all, just hide your desires. Stand your ground, just hold your ground.
Nice. Cool. Pretty good. We're in a pretty good spot here. You know, I'm not hearing a whole ton of like red flags or anything like that, aside from the the really kind of hissy nature of the vocals. You know, a lot of kind of like high-end harshness, like that 10K kind of bump happening here. I'm not sure if it's processing or if it was microphone. It's got to be processing. But we'll have to address that tomorrow on vocal day. Everything else is sitting pretty good. What I'm noticing is kind of the big issue that I want to tackle with this mix is there's a lot of opportunity for depth in this, right? I'm hearing everything just kind of like pretty flat across the sound stage here, right? And I'm picturing in my mind, you know, there being just a little bit more dimension, like let's pull things out across the Z axis and really kind of fill out the cube a little bit more, right? So I'm going to start off with the drums. Let's head in. We'll get a little bit closer up. We have a room on the kick already. Let's see what we got. Yeah, I think I want to bring this up a little bit here. Guys hearing that okay? Ones in chat, you're hearing it? Yep, cool. And for now, I'm just going to mute those vocals. Eliminate a few things here and just kind of hyper focus. check out that kick bass relationship. Too shabby. Already kind of sitting nicely. Like if we take a look at these, you can kind of visualize exactly what's going on in frequency land here, right? It sounds like these sounds were selected with care, right? Because we have some kind of like obvious kind of ranges that each one of these instruments are living in. Kick, kind of bumping up here, you know, around 80-ish, and then bass 100 to 200-ish, right? So a little bit higher. So by adding just a tiny little bit of a shove, it's already, I feel like the kick is already kind of punching through here. I don't want to go too like extreme with trying to create separation between the bass and the kick. Feels right. What that bass is lacking though is around here, right? It's kind of causing it to sound a little underwater. I think we can probably get it a little bit better defined. I'm going to do something kind of wacky here. Use the ozone. And I'm going to split up a few bands here. And I'm just going to add some saturation here to around this area on the bass.
So explain to them why you're doing saturation instead of an EQ move.
Yeah. Because there's I want to add harmonic content here. I want to add frequencies, right? Just kind of
There's not a lot there,
right?
to turn up. So an
Exactly.
EQ move there's not much there to turn up. So it doesn't
Exactly.
work. You can't turn up something that's not there. So
Yeah.
saturation actually creates harmonic information in that range.
Yeah. So let's see what we can do. I don't really want to touch anything else, you know, maybe just this range here. See what it does. Might work. Why not? All right, it's extreme. You hear it just kind of like plucking through a little bit now.
Yep. It's nice, actually.
Right? Just kind of plucking.
For me, it's making it sound more woody.
Upright.
You can hear the wood of it more somehow. Yeah, it sounds like more real.
Yeah, it's got more of an upright sound to it. Plunk, 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 right? Right there. I think I might see how much I can get away with there. Cool.
That's cool. So this is geeky, but I was just talking to, I don't know if he's here today, Beasterfield, the other day about why hardly any saturation plugins have diode options, because he's saying diodes, yeah, Randy, diodes also cause a coloration, the diodes that are being used in the thing, not just transistors and the other electronics.
Mhm.
This one did, Randy. This one had a diode option. Interesting. Anyway, geeky for those of you who are geeky.
Dual triode.
Yep. Yeah, it has a dual triode option, so it's leaning
I
into
actually landed on that one. I like that one. Anyway. Let's get some space in here. That's the biggest thing for me. Such a small, tiny little adjustment there. I don't want to like completely destroy all that nice kind of like punchy kind of like strummy kind of stuff that's happening here, right? I want that to be in the performance. So I'm just kind of like gentle kind of hand when it comes to taking any of that stuff out. Right? We start doing that too much. You'll lose kind of more the natural sound. Well, as natural as it can sound with it being kind of jammed up with compression right now. So this is I'm going to go ahead and show you guys the method that you can use as a starting point for applying reverb and spatial processing to your mixes. Go ahead and jump right into that. So basically what we do here is called the 3 buckets method. All right, so imagine in your mix, there are 3 types of instruments, groups of instruments. You know, type number 1 would be like drums and percussion. Number 2 would be vocals. And type number 3 would be everything else. All right, with me so far? Just 3 buckets, categorize everything in your mix into 3 buckets: drums and perk, vocals, everything else. Cool. Now for each one of those, you create auxes. We like to bus our reverbs. Create a short verb and a long verb for drums and percussion. This would be different reverbs for vocals, short reverb, and a long reverb. Stick with me here. Everything else, we got a short reverb, and a long reverb. I know short and long is kind of vague, right? So for the purposes for which we're kind of like showing you this, short, consider short like a starting point for reverb decay time, maybe half a second. All right, and then long verb, maybe 1.5 seconds. Just starting point. Okay. So for vocals, what I like to do as well is just set up a couple aux tracks, short delay and a long delay. And again, as a starting point, short delay, you could be just like an 1/8 note. Long delay would be a 1/4 note or a 1/2 note. And you can start with any of those. So here, on my What Effects, I've got them all set up. I've got my drum, short and long. I've got instruments, short and long. And then I've got my vocals, short reverb, long reverb, and a short delay and a long delay. Take a look here. So my short reverb, large chambered around 800 milliseconds. And really, like when you're choosing your reverbs, just start somewhere and then you can always adjust as you kind of apply things inside of your process, right? And this is just a starting point. This is just a template that you can choose to use for your mixes or not use, but this is kind of what we found to be what Caleb described as like the sweet spot, right? Where you've got, a few diverse kind of options here, but not so diverse and not so narrow either. So I've got a plate here for my drum long. And when I am choosing reverbs, at least when I was choosing reverbs, now I have kind of like my go-tos that I really, really like, that I've become accustomed to, but that doesn't mean they stay the same across every single mix. Sometimes I'll have to change them up depending on what's going on, depending on the texture and the feel and how everything sounds. But when I was choosing them, and for those of you who are just like trying this process, try just starting with a preset and try just go into a preset and seeing what's there.
Yeah,
Right?
don't get hung up on starting. Just start.
Yeah. So I might go here and look for something that says like drum room or something, that if you're using maybe like stock stuff, I'd say Logic to like a reverb, might go to Chroma Verb, say, okay, are there any kind of, oh no, that's not the one I wanted. I wanted Space Designer. Maybe you pull up your reverb and you just kind of flip through some of the presets. Hey, what's a small space or a medium space that you can use for a short reverb? On maybe drums or something like that. Well, I might look for the word drums in my preset list and just start from there, right? And all of this will come with time and just kind of exploring your options and your plugins and building your taste over time. But you just got to start somewhere, right? So this is how we have it set up. And I want to bring some space into this acoustic guitar. So what I'm going to do here is I'm thinking just kind of short reverb. Just to place it in a space, just to bring some of that perceived third dimension in here. I really kind of want this to be more felt than heard, just because of the intimate nature of the song, especially in the introduction. It's just vocals and acoustic guitar, right? Very stripped down, kind of want it to be the vibe of the artist, like just kind of like sitting in front of you in a room, you know? A bit too reflective for me, so I'm actually going to EQ the verb a little bit. To get that slappy kind of feeling out of there. Hear the difference there, guys? It's very subtle, and I'm just doing this in solo right now. We'll listen to it in context in a sec. Pretty even out that bass. Oh, that's why. Thank you. Like, whoa, man, we had a little bit more to do on that bass than I thought.
So explain what you're doing here, Jake. This is what I was talking about earlier. This is the first time we've reached for a limiter here. and it is to do what I was mentioning earlier, to control dynamics.
Yeah, just to control the dynamic range here. You know, we've got a buzzsaw bass here. I want to turn it more into a sausage. All right. So if I were to bounce this in place, look at that. Just like squashed it. Completely flattened out the dynamic range. And the reason I did that is I just want a very solid bass presence here. I don't want it kind of like losing some notes here and like poking through the mix too much over there. Like, I think we can leave the dynamic range to some of the other instruments and just have a nice kind of solid kind of bass foundation here. That's my thought process.
Yeah. You don't want it to disappear, and then you don't want it to poke out sometimes and distract the listener from the vocal or whatever else is going on. So this just smooths it out, gives it a nice consistent feel. And you really want that with something like a bass. It's grounding things, right?
Yeah, that's my thought process anyway. However, you know, I might do something wacky here. Feeling a little dangerous today.
Notice how quick that was. It was very fast. It's much faster than even a compressor to dial in. Or someone just said, why not use like Bass Rider? Way
Oh,
fast,
I'm on a demo mode.
way faster than Bass Rider.
Oh, can't use that one. Oh no, I am demo mode. Huh. That's something I have to look into. Never mind. Forget that. Yeah, guys, don't get too caught up with the like the kind of tool that I'm using here. Loudmax, this limiter, right? You can use any kind of limiter for this purpose. You know, I'm just thinking to myself, okay, what do I have? What kind of limiter do I have that's quick, efficient, and transparent? You know, isn't really going to color the sound. Just do the job of controlling dynamics, and that's it. That's all I'm looking.
Show them the before and after, and then we'll hear the difference between stuff fading in and out, but also show what it does to the headroom that we're going to save here too.
Oh yeah. Okay. So starting solo without. Now with. Nice and even. Hear that? It's okay if you don't. That's cool too. But there is a difference there, right? And now in context. All right. First without. You can only like if you follow the playhead, you'll hear these notes, you know, the ones with the higher transients, but all of these other little notes get lost in the mix, right? Pay attention to this. Hear those? Just kind of like poking through, right? And then we put Loudmax on there, you know, just limit it so that everything is even, consistent. You hear every single one of those notes nice and solid in the mix, right? Clear as day. Guys get that? Yes? Yeah, thumbs up, ones or thumbs up, or any kind of awesome emoji you want to toss in?
That was an aha for a few people who were having trouble hearing it until you explained it, and then they can hear it.
I know. I saw the chatter. It's awesome. That is awesome. Cool. very simple, you know, and I don't have to pull. What's cool is here, guys, it's like I don't have to pull up something with 14 billion knobs to make that happen. You know, I think that's the way I like to do it, right? The simpler, the better. Give me like the simple, fast, efficient way to do it, right? Way to accomplish the goal, and pick the tool for the job accordingly, right? Look at that. Just like 2 sliders on there. You know what I mean? So hopefully that's helpful. Worth checking out. This is so wild because Caleb, like before this, I'm working on like a metal mix, right? So it's like where it's all like clicky kick transient, right? And the kick is just like it's like an assault on your whole family. And now I'm working with this where it's like this laid back, kind of soft, kind of fluffy kick, right? I'm approaching it very, very differently. Anyway. I do, however, you know, like I'm kind of torn with that kick. The attack of the kick, I think, is good here. But once we get into this section, I like kind of, I really like more of just kind of like the heartbeat of the song being the kick rather than it being like really pokey and punchy. You know, it's just a boom, 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 boom. It's like the pulse of the song, right? So for me, thinking about the emotional intent and thinking about the overall big emotion and the big picture of the song, regardless of whether or not I like or prefer a punchy kick, you know, thinking in that way musically and about the emotion, I want to go with like the pulse, the more of the pulse, almost like the blood, the pumping, right? Boom, boom, boom. So that being said, I'm inclined to just kind of like excite the lower end of this kick a little bit more. And what I'll do is I'll actually kind of do like basically a pull tech trick here. Hear that in context? It's a game of tiny little adjustments, short little adjustments. But basically what I did there was I cut out the extreme kind of like low end on that kick and then bumped it up just a touch right at the fundamental ish. And that kind of gave it a little bit more focus, but also a little bit more girth at the same time.
It's funny, as I was reading chat answering people, and all of a sudden I noticed myself kind of like bobbing, like my knees started bobbing, and I looked up what you were doing, and it was actually causing a visceral response. Just
That's awesome.
the more impact that was causing.
Uh,
That's what you want, I guess.
That's exactly it. That's it. If Caleb's bopping, I know I'm doing my job right.
I hardly ever bop, but when I do, it's because you made a good move.
Something else I'm hearing in that section is that wood block. I just want to bring it up because it's cool. It's just a cool part and I like it, so I'm gonna bring it up. There's nothing more to it than that. It's kind of quirky. It's a new sound. It's ear candy, right? So it's going to draw audience engagement. It's going to draw the listener. It's going to improve engagement, I guess I should say. Let's give that wood block a little bit of space. And we're going to use our drum short verb. See if that does. A little less. Let's get that again. Just that high end is just too much. Nice sense of space, you know, a little bit of depth. Here, I am just going to do a volume move on the kick, just with a gain plugin. Yep. So that's kind of like the climax of the song right there. And just want to bring it up a decibel because that kick still needs to like, that's the thing that makes Caleb bop. So I want to make sure that that's like to the forefront here. Cool. And then without it, oh, crud. Sugar cookies. That's what my grandma would have said.
What'd you do?
I just opened up a panel I didn't mean to open up. Kind of wild, right? How just like a tiny little 1 decibel move like that and just kind of create a little bit of magic and a little bit of motion. This is without, and then I'll show you with. With. Just a little salt and pepper. Keep that pulse going. Boom, boom. Let's give this snare some. Oh, let's see.
People are asking.
What's that?
People are asking why not use volume automation? You want to free your volume faders up. If you use gain automation, you still can pull up your mixing console and make adjustments like on a global scale, big picture. If you automate those, then you tie those down. To free all those up, use gain automation. It's a much better process.
Yeah. Nope, exactly right. Yeah, otherwise, you know, let's say further on down the mix, I wanted to make like a global adjustment to my kick drum. Then I would have to go in and just pull the whole automation lane up. You know, I wouldn't be able to go to the fader because it would just keep snapping back on me.
And you forget the ones that you put them on. You
Forgot. Yeah.
It's 2 days from now. You forgot you put it on there. You're putting it on there. It's not doing anything. You're like, why does that sound hard? It's not doing anything.
Just a mess.
Been there, done that.
Great big mess. So, you know, I was saying a little bit earlier, Caleb, when you were taking a break, was, you know, this track is in such a great place up front to start with. We can really have a lot of fun with enhancement level stuff here. You know, the biggest thing that I'm hearing with the mix is lack of depth and excitement and width.
Yeah.
Like all of those things, right? And those are all enhancement level stuff, things, you know. I'm not
a lot
really
of problems to fix.
Yeah, exactly. It's really nice. It's nice to come into it like that, because then we can spend more time doing those extra tiny little moves that make all the difference like that.
There are a lot more problems in the vocal recording that we'll have to fix tomorrow, but the instrumental sounds pretty good.
To be honest, if I was mixing this for an artist, I would start with the vocal. Because it's just such a vocal heavy song. It's such a vocal driven track. You know, and that's where the obvious problem is, or the obvious issue is for me. I would want to get that solved and like put to bed before I did anything else, right? To just get that kind of like balance and get that vocal sitting right where I wanted it. But you guys just have to wait till tomorrow. Just added a little bit of room reverb to that snare drum. More felt than heard. It's just barely audible. If you're wearing headphones,
that snare is bugging.
What's that?
Something about that snare is still bugging a little bit.
Bugging you?
Mm-hmm.
It's probably 5K. So that, yeah. Randy says, or all K, because I did such a wide boost there.
Or all the Ks.
Wide cut there. All the Ks.
He doesn't discriminate against one K over another. He's just getting all the Ks. No, it was there's just like too much brush. That's what it was. There's like too much brush sound. It was just kind of distracting and annoying. But
That's actually, it might get in the way of the vocal there too. So it's probably preemptively probably a good carving move. Cool. Yeah, like with the rest of the mix, I thought I would have to go into the acoustic guitar and kind of mess with it, with the original tracks. But the way that this is actually sitting, like hard compressed like this, I don't hate it. I'm not mad at it. Yeah, we're gonna do some work on that violin. Don't worry, guys. So I'm actually gonna do some automation on this guitar.
it'll be interesting.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, it'll be interesting to hear how if that competes at all with the vocal tomorrow. Some of that guitar stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, we shall see. I'm going to adjust reverb levels. I'm just going to automate the reverb level on that acoustic. I want it to be fairly dry in the beginning of the track. When everything else kind of comes in, I'll make it a little bit wetter, give it a little bit more space. There might be a little bit of a phasing thing going on the acoustic guitar. Somebody mentioned it. I don't know who in the chat. But there might be because there were multiple mics on this thing, right? So multiple mics at multiple distances that may not have been aligned properly in the edit might be causing a little bit of phased kind of width or phased kind of like artifacts, but not enough to the not enough to the point where I think it's ruining the song or anything like that. And then here, I'm going to bump this up just a touch on the reverb. Start to get a little less intimate. All these other instruments start to come in. And then the guitar can kind of take a step back a little bit, right? That's the thought. That's my thought anyway. Thinking about all of this stuff in a very kind of musical way, right? Just listen to that. That's a good question, Daniel. I don't really mix in mono. I just don't.
I check in mono.
Yeah, I'll check things in mono if I'm like adding some like phase based stuff, if I'm using like wideners or imagers or anything like that. But I don't really mix in mono. Some people love it, you know, some people stand by it. That's cool too. You know, there's no right or wrong, you know, it's just whatever techniques get the job done. Nobody ever asks, nobody cares, you know, like if you put out a great song, you put out a great song, whether you mix it in mono or not. You know, nobody really cares. Nobody cares the sample rate. Nobody cares if you mixed it in mono.
No one cares what DAW you used.
Nobody cares what DAW you used, what if you use a limiter or compressor or whatever. Like nobody cares about that. I just think this is brilliant. The banjo part. Okay, let's tackle this violin a little bit.
Violin.
Yeah. Get your drinks ready. If there's an instrument that deserves my top plugin, I don't think I've mixed a violin without it. Boom, baby.
Because those are resonant beasts. And they can produce some annoying resonances.
Like basically from here all the way to like here-ish. That's what I'm thinking. All the K's, right? Okay, that's where it is for me. Right in there, between 2 and 5. That actually is pretty good right there.
For all of you who are new, if you don't get the joke, all of our students are putting drinks in the chat because whenever we use Soothe in our demonstrations, they just like to make that joke for some reason. I don't even know where it started.
I think it started because I talk about it all the time. Like it became a gag like super quick about anything that was just like harsh. Just like
Yeah.
a little Soothe on it, you'll be fine. I think it just happened in a coaching call. Like it was a coaching call and everybody that was bringing tracks for feedback on the coaching call, they just coincidentally just having the same issue. So every answer, it was like, just throw a little Soothe on it. And then next. I think that's where it came from. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys.
I hate that answer. I hate miracle plugins. I don't think there are very many. This is one that's pretty good.
It's pretty good. But like any plugin or any kind of process, you know, it's really easy to overuse.
Totally.
It can make stuff sound underwater like that, you know.
Take all the life away. Yeah, you take all the resonant away, but you can so easily kill the vibe and the life of a track.
Yeah. So
Password.
a couple things I've discovered about this, Caleb. I don't know if I've told you about this stuff yet. But like 2 things you can do to help this plugin react in a more natural kind of fashion. is one, oversample
Oh, you like to oversample, huh?
on this one.
Cool.
This one, I've noticed a difference.
I never can hardly hear a difference. So if you can on this one, that'll be cool.
And two, that's number one. On two, number two is, you
Mix
know, find the sweet spot and then use the mix knob
Got it.
to blend it.
Yep.
Yeah.
I
Those
mean,
are kind of
what's the difference between the mix knob and the depth knob? Because I
You know-
pulled the depth knob back a lot. Is it probably similar?
It's probably similar. However, one is just one's bringing back the intensity of the effect. One is blending the dry and the wet. Right? So that's like saying basically it's like the difference between jacking the input on an 1176 or just touching it.
Right.
Right? And then using the mix knob, right? So I like to think of it that way. Right? It's more of a blending approach rather than just the depth knob, just the intensity of the effect approach. And by doing it that way, I've found like yields a little bit more natural of a result.
Probably a natural product because you're blending the original, you're paralleling it back
Yeah.
in. So
Exactly. Gotta tell you though, I don't hate it with at 100% mix. That's without, and then with. But we have a little bit, we're starting to get a little bit of that underwater sound, right? Kind of getting buried a little bit. So I'm just going to bring the mix back. Now I think that coupled with a little bit of manual spot treating will get the job done.
I had to do some manual spot treating on my carpet this morning after my 2-year-old threw her cake on the floor at her birthday party last night.
Oh, naughty, naughty.
She was
Similarly,
encouraged to do so, but if we're talking about manual spot treating,
similarly, I didn't let the dog out early enough in the morning
so you're also doing some manual spot treating.
yesterday. So I too have found myself engaging in some manual spot treating outside of this session.
Man, she went zero.
Huh?
She went 0 to 100 last night. Like
Did she?
daintily taking little, and then just squagoosh.
Amazing.
Amazing. Anyway,
Good stuff. You get any photos?
Yeah.
That's good. All right, guys. See what I did there? Just manually just pull down the volume of that one note that was getting harsh. Actually, I'll kind of pull this back a little bit more here. Good.
nice.
I'm into it. So just to recap, I did kind of like a high level, just kind of like blanket global kind of taming of the harshness here between 2K and 5K using Soothe. And then because just that automated high level move didn't work across the entire track, I did some manual treatment just on the spot that needed it. Okay, all I did was turn it down. You have to treat the right track. No, this applies across the stereo field. This move. I know it looks like it's just on the left channel, but this applies to both channels, left and right. Yes, I'm so glad you mentioned something, Peter. It's exactly what I'm going to do. Let's route this and toss some reverb on it. I'm thinking like a long reverb, actually. I don't know. Let's play with it. I don't really know what it's going to sound like. Yeah, I'm just going to use one of the reverbs from my buckets here, the long reverb. This one is just like a hall reverb. Let's fatten this thing up.
Yeah, needs a little juice. I'm just basically going to toss this through a ton of circuitry. Just give it saturation, warmth, tape, all that kind of stuff. That last plugin was just tape. It was just running it through tape. This is like, what do you got here?
I'm going to run it through a Neve console.
Neve console.
I'm just cranking the drive on it. Getting there. Better.
Much better. Let's hear before and after. It was, remember, you guys all remember how brittle it was?
I'm gonna do one more move.
Moss? Okay.
Okay, let's try that. I'm also going to experiment with putting Soothe at the top of the chain. So we've corrected the, you correct the problem, then toss it through the processing. It sounds a little bit clearer to me. Okay, in solo, before and afters, without reverb.
Ugh.
Just a little bit thicker, kind of like drawing a
hear-
little bit more
Y'all hear
attention.
that? It's
Drawing a
wild.
little, drawing a little bit more attention to the mids.
Wild how much that helps. I mean, with it off, it's a bit hard to listen to for me.
Yeah, just kind of rounds it out, I guess.
You kind of went fast there. Let everyone know what you were doing there. Just real quick, run through it.
Yeah, of course. So just layers of saturation, just layers of subtle saturation, and harmonic content, adding imperfections, and introducing the character of each of these kind of pieces of gear. And just to fill out the sound. So a little touch of, virtual tape machine, little tape machine saturation. We've got saturation happening here on a Neve console emulation. Yeah, I'm using this preamp called the London from Slate. It's just got a very kind of natural kind of mid kind of warmth to it. Like that's just the character of it. Same thing with this. The 1176, the vintage model, just a little bit warmer, kind of wolfier, right? Especially if you toss it on this like circuit 2 on this particular plugin. And then this is the monster. It emulates the all buttons in setting on like the hardware on an 1176 hardware unit. You can press all 4 of the ratio buttons in and just basically put it on nuke mode. It's like basically like infinity. It's like limiting almost, right? It's just like absolutely crushes it, but it's still got its own sound, So I've done that, but essentially in parallel. So I brought the mix knob back to blend in the dry signal and the wet signal there, back to about 37% ish, And really, this is just me knowing the gear, knowing what I want to achieve, and knowing what tools I have available to me, and then just stacking them on top of each other until, you know, it sounds it sounds like I want it to sound. Well, I'm really just experimenting with things, honestly.
Yeah, it's cool because I think this is a really more advanced move. So for some of you, it might be a little over your head. That's okay. For some of you who are more advanced, you're kind of licking your chops right now because that was a really beautiful move to warm up something that was sounding harsh. And instead of going in there maybe with one tool or with EQ or the wrong tool that way, it was layering. It was layering moments of saturation on top of each other instead of having one tool do too much, so that you could kind of get it there, but not have one tool like oversaturating it too much. So that's pretty masterful work, Jake. That was awesome.
Thanks, man. Hopefully it helped everybody. Somebody asked, does the order of these plugins matter? Not really. No. I mean, the best way to answer that question though is to do it yourself and just play around with the plugin order and see how they respond. I was just kind of, I don't know, I was just kind of grabbing stuff. Somebody else asked a really great question. I can't remember what it was. But it was basically like, okay, so do this, then do this, then do this, then do this every time you're mixing a violin. No, that's not the answer, right? What I did here was just to accomplish a very specific goal. Some violins that I work with don't need all this stuff, you know? I might not take that approach. I might listen to a violin and say, hey, this already sounds great. This already sounds fat enough. This already sounds warm enough. You know, it doesn't have that tinny kind of thin kind of feeling. So I don't have to do anything. I don't have to do anything at all.
I would say that this probably wasn't mic'd ideally, and that's why we're having to do this. You could have mic'd it in a way where we wouldn't have had to do this. So that's always better to do if you can do it.
You wanna mic it, you say?
No.
Oh. Already, just like tossing the profile of that ribbon mic.
Yeah, the RE121. That's what I would have, if I had my choice of mics, that's what I would have chosen. But it's not just a mic type thing. It's also a proximity and position of the mic thing.
All right, let's go farther. Let's adjust proximity then. See what we got. The difference? It's
Better.
huge, right? Just like closest proximity possible, just to make sure that we're getting like a lot of the resonances and kind of like more of the low end to fight what's going on in the upper range, right? All that annoying, harsh kind of shrillness that's happening there, right? So basically we're just taking an imbalanced violin that is like this, kind of tilted more towards the high end, and just balancing it out.
It actually is doing a similar thing to what you were doing with the saturations before. This mic ribbons saturate in a certain way, so it's emulating that type of saturation on the low end, so effectively attempting to do the same thing.
Let's switch back and forth between the two. This is wild. This is like probably more advanced, the more advanced stuff we've done on a Fix the Mix challenge for sure.
Yeah. Yep.
We won't spend too much longer on this, guys, I promise. Just ABM. In solo, I like that better.
Yeah, it's so the compressor you have on there is controlling it more, so it's more flat, and that might work in the mix better. But I actually, on its own, I would choose the mic over the
Yeah.
saturation.
Let's flip back and forth in context. You know, I might just do a best of both worlds here.
I like the ribbon better.
I do too.
It gets all the life back.
I want to squeeze it a little bit though.
Yeah.
I do still want to squeeze it. So
Just a little bit.
maybe not as much as like the, you know,
Give it a little hug.
but just kind of blanket of, yeah, just a hug. Yeah.
Just a little hug.
Little hug. Not that much of a hug. Listen to that.
Oh, that's nice. What a cool, fun thing we just explored.
Yeah.
Music's fun, you know?
Music is fun. Oh. All right, moving on. That's what we got in here. You know, before we move on, why don't we take a little break? Been
5-minute
listening
bio break.
a lot of music. We'll take a quick bio break. Yep. 5 minutes. Does that work for everybody? Is that cool?
Let's do 5 minutes. Listen again, fresh ears, last tweaks. Then we'll show you some mastering stuff and we'll save the rest for tomorrow.
Yeah.
You don't want to miss tomorrow, vocal day. It's going to be a lot of fun. There's a lot to figure out.
See what we can do.
See how well Jake does on vocals with COVID.
Throw me under the bus
If
on these vocals. It's so wild. You know, these vocals are an interesting one because they sound good in certain sections of the song. Right? They cut through in a really nice way in the really dense sections. However, right up front, as soon as they enter the arrangement, it's like, whoa. Right? So I think that's a lot of that has to do.
should we see if they have the original unprocessed vocal? Would you want that?
I would love that. If you can pull that off.
They might be listening.
Just let me know.
If you're all listening, shoot me an email if you have that. If not, no worries. We can
Yeah,
do it. But
that would be sick.
it's a great performance, by the way. Awesome voice. It's nothing like that. It's all like capture and processing stuff. Yeah, I like the character too. All right, let's do 5 minute. See you guys in a sec.
All right. I'm gonna bring up a timer for you guys. Not just any timer. My favorite timer. The Goog. It's the Goog. It's the Google timer. We got 5 minutes on the clock. Yep. High tech. That's right, baby. Let's get it started. We'll see you guys in 5. Hey, we're back. What's up? Any questions so far, guys? How many displays do I have? 2. I have 2 displays, one here and then one here, angled down a little bit. Do vertical placement. They're 30. I'm old, so they're any giant screens. They're like 32-inch screens. Pretty big. And they're like, I can touch them. Like I'm touching it right now, so they're pretty close to me. I'm mixing on 2-way monitors, no sub. 2-way monitors, no sub. Old pair of VXT6, like KRK VXT6s. They're discontinued now. Width, 40, 50 inches-ish. I don't have my tape measure, but I just did a bunch of like room stuff. So I had the tape measure down here, but I don't have it anymore. Maybe 48 inches equilateral. That's true, Nick. You do have t-shirts older than me. That doesn't mean I'm not old, though. That just makes you really old. Sound card? No. Apogee. When you say sound card, I think to like my when I was using a Digio 1 back in the day. Just like have to install the sound card in my PC. No, it's Apogee Element. I'm using just a Element 24, one with the 2 mic pre's in it. How important is ADDA converters? It depends on who you ask. To me, it's like, I mean, that's one of the reasons why I got the Apogee. Because like their ADDA kind of like conversion is supposed to be really good, but honestly, you can use anything. It's not going to be the difference between. It's one of those things that it's like, okay, somebody hears a song and they're not going to know. Nobody cares about the ADDA. It's like so like minuscule of a difference. In my experience, anyway. I don't know. Maybe you can hear the difference. Nope. No, I don't have any experience like modded equipment or DIY equipment. Except for guitar amps. Not like, recording gear. Is mastering subjective or just all of this stuff is like a little bit subjective, right? It's like a scale. Like imagine there's a scale of like subjective and objective. I think like you're always kind of like in different scenarios, you're always just kind of like sliding to one side of the scale or the other, never completely all the way on one side or the other, but with one song, you're always just kind of like moving back and forth on that scale. How many guitars do I have? I don't have that many anymore. I just like got rid of a whole bunch of stuff. I like to purge. I like to take these seasons where I just like purge stuff. So like I don't have any gear anymore. I'm completely in the box with like recording and studio stuff. I don't have any like amps anymore. I don't have any guitar amps anymore. They're gone. Done. It's all amp. I do all amp sim stuff. For clients, I do all reamping through amp sims. I think now I have why is that what Jens Bogren does? Is he all like amp sim now? Or is he the opposite? I don't know. I'm asking. Somebody asked. Anyway. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Six guitars, maybe 7, 8. 3 more in the next room over here. In this it's like my supply closet. It was supposed to be a tracking room, but I don't do any tracking here. I don't think we do a Zoom chat for like music business specifically, but we have electives and we teach music business inside of our inside reverse engineer. Which amp sims am I using? I'm all in heavy stuff, so I can tell you my top 3. It's like Neural DSP, Gojira, Fortin Nameless, and Auto Audio's 1111. Those are my 3. I don't play live gigs anymore. No, I'm just a studio head now. I'm just producer. Yeah, I know, dude. Gojira for everything, right? You just toss it on, like you can toss it on anything. If you want like just a heavy, awesome, heavy guitar tone, just use a Gojira. Would I ever do a class like this for live mixing? I'm done with live mixing. No. I mean, I maybe, but I wouldn't be the guy. I wouldn't be the guy for that. Jason. Live mixing is more about knowing your space, you know, and knowing how to put out fires. In my experience, anyway. Jake, do you choose your plugins randomly while you're in the workflow? Yeah, exactly. That's a great question, Lewis. I think of the goal that I want to achieve first. I'm like, what's the goal that I want to achieve? And then mentally, I'm just like flipping through. I'm flipping through my favorite tools in my arsenal. I'm just kind of like thinking very quickly of what do I have, you know. And what I like to do here, guys, is like I put my most used tools right here, like right at the top list. So I don't have to go like leafing through a whole bunch of like plugin manufacturers and stuff like that. Like these are all my most used tools. There's like 20 of them or something. Well, no, more than 20, more like 40, right? This looks like probably 40. See, there's Gojira, there's the Fortin Nameless, and there's 1111 we just talked about, right? But I like to have all kind of like my top plugins like right here in my top list. So it's very easy to kind of like go to them. I'll just Linda, I'll just mention like the free ones as we go along the way. The only free plugins I've used so far are like the stock EQ. So everybody's got it, you know, everybody who has a DAW has an EQ, has a stock EQ. And then that Loudmax limiter, that's totally free.
Just
oh yeah, and the gain plugin. Yep, totally.
That's true. Just a plug once again for it's not about the tool, it's about how you use it. There's lots of different ways to do any of this stuff. And in fact, just get good with what you have. Become masterful at that. Not only will it make you better in the long run, but it also informs you about what you actually need instead of what just seems fun.
Here, somebody asked a quick question, then we're going to dive in that I wanted to answer. It got buried. Can you give us some tips on how to bring more life to virtual instruments? I love that question. Buy better virtual instruments. For real. Like, I don't think people talk about this enough, to be honest. Like, I think it's like, hey, you can like destockify your stock virtual instruments to make them sound more realistic. but that's only going to get you so far. It's never going to be as good as like investing in the Spitfire string library. You know what I mean? Or like getting the top tier virtual instruments, or just hiring somebody to play some parts. You know, like, if you want that level of quality, it all starts at the virtual instrument itself. It's not fixed in mixing, or it's not fixed in editing or anything like that.
It's like F1 in a way.
Here we go.
You know, you could put Max Verstappen in a Haas car and he can only take it so far. But you put him in a Red Bull car, you could just take it so much further.
Second and a half further. To be
Second and a half per lap further. You know what I mean? But it's very, very true. Like when I work with bad virtual instruments, it's just a nightmare. It's hard to use. It's hard to make sound good. It takes the creative mojo away. It's really worth getting stuff that's good and easy to use. It's not just about how they sound. It's about they build a lot of functionality into it to do a lot of the life-giving stuff automatically. You still have to tweak a little bit, but it just does so much more of it for you. It's just really worth investing if you use that stuff a lot.
Yeah, East-West is good too. I switched from East-West over to Spitfire because the interface was easier to use. To Caleb's point, you know, like it kept me in the creative flow. East-West has a ton of options, and if you want to get really granular with how you edit things and like articulations and stuff like that, it's pretty good. You know, it's pretty solid. But you got to be a professional, and you got to learn you got to learn that interface inside and out. Spitfire was just easy for me, for my brain to work with. The GUI. It's a friendlier GUI.
That's what I've been telling Andrea from the program.
Yeah.
Like, dude, go
Are
find
you
some
trying-
virtual instruments you really love. Spend some time and go explore a whole bunch of different ones because he uses them so much.
I know he does. What is he in East-West right now?
He's using
What's he using? His stuff sounds
he's
great.
using the free Spitfire stuff.
It's phenomenal. It sounds great.
The free stuff isn't as good though as the nicer stuff.
Man, just the lab stuff is phenomenal. It's really good.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Their paid stuff has that edge though. It really sounds more lifelike.
God, I remember when Albion came out, dude. Like, it was like, oh my God, I can't believe we're there. We made it.
Yeah.
Basically, it was like, wow, we've officially made it.
It's getting crazy. All right.
Yeah, you want to hop back in? You guys ready to go? 1,234,791 in the chat if you're ready to go. Nice commas. That Jedediah gets a cookie. Oh, one. All right, ones are fine too. Fine. I'll take them.
All I can do is one.
Let's keep going. Let's see what we got here so far. We are doing pretty good. We've got some violin happening. Awesome. We've got some pianos and mellotrons. I'm not hearing a lot of masking. Why don't we just kind of like roll into this and just kind of observe, see what's going on here. Cool. One thing I noticed here, you know, I don't want to mess with the valence too much before we put in the vocals, but in this spot, I think it's okay because if we take a look down here, there are no vocals happening. Right? So what I'd like to do is do a little bit of volume automation on these banjo plucks because I think they bring a lot of cool, bubbly kind of motion to this section. Right here. Just want to pop this up a little bit more. Couple decibel. 2-3 dB. Hey. See what we did there? Just pulled this up a couple decibels. That's it. That's all we did. Boom, ba-doom, boom, boom, ba-doom, ba-doom, boom. Yeah, Giannis got it. Boom. Yeah, however you say that. Right? It's cool. That's the cutaway scene where the boy and his dog are like heading out on their journey, you know. He's got the stick with the handkerchief with all his important valuables in it.
Said like someone who has 1,500 placements in sync.
Cool. I'm into it.
Does the acoustic guitar come in relation to the vocals in the beginning?
The acoustic guitar?
Yep.
Enters the arrangement prior to the vocal.
Or does
Oh,
the kick enter?
Yep. It's just 4 beats.
Cool. I think we're fine. I think we'll be fine. I was just hearing how the guitar, because it doesn't really have a ton of space on it compared to like the kick and bass, was just sounding like a little disconnected from him. But I think once the vocal's in there, it'll take up for that and it'll be fine.
And we'll also be able to reassess once the vocal is in here, you know, because all of these relationships are subject to change, right? At any given time, once we start to bring in the vocal, you know, it could change some things because that's the new main focus, right? Remember, there are vocals in this song. Already scooped all that out. That's why it sounds so mid-rangey. See, all of this kind of low end, this is all accounted for in production. Like if we just soloed this keys bus, there's nothing going on below 100 here. I just take all of it out. That's not me doing that either. It's just a piano with no low end. Yeah, the piano like sinks in to the mix here, but I'm okay with that. No, these two instruments here, the mellotron and the piano, they're very supportive, kind of gooey, kind of laying underneath everything else. You know, I'm okay with having them back in the mix. Yeah, I feel good about this, man.
Miss them if they were gone, but you don't have to. In fact, another mistake I see a lot of people make is they just put everything all forward. That's how you kill all your depth. You need to let stuff sit back. You need to let stuff support, and you need to let stuff be the focus and tell the story of that. You always want the listener directed somewhere with their ears. If everything's forward, they get confused.
Panning, I'm happy with the panning that the producers kind of like just baked into the track. I don't really feel the need to mess with the panning at all.
Yeah, Mater, that's because it was already baked in. The panning was already done.
Cool. Do a little bit of bus processing, and then we'll call it a day.
I also want everyone to just notice like how few plugins have been used.
Yeah, on this one, on this track, yeah.
Look. I think there's like an insecurity sometimes when we're learning to mix where we feel like we have to do more than we do. And we really have to be disciplined to just fix what you hear and enhance what you need to enhance. And not everything needs plugins. Not everything needs stuff on it.
Yeah.
In fact, the less you process, in many cases, the better, especially in this style. Stuff can be so easily overprocessed and sound unnatural.
Yeah, I haven't used any compression.
Hardly any compression. You use that one limiter, so we got to demonstrate that, but not even EQ. There's EQ on 4 tracks
Yeah,
of
so
the
far.
of the 50 or whatever there is. 30, 40.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, just a few like reverb on a few kind of choice elements, you know, kind of more exposed elements, woodblock, a little bit of snare, that acoustic guitar and the violin, and really nothing else. Is it typical that I use this little or just because there's so much baked in? It just really depends on the tracks. Depends on the mix. It depends on the tracks you're working with.
More often than not, people are kind of like, I'm impressed that you have how few plugins you used.
Yeah.
You restrained, you have that discipline to just fix what needs fixed. And we'll fix that. We'll probably end up with a few more tomorrow, because once we get the vocals in there, we might start hearing more masking stuff and we might need to clean a little bit more out, but you know, we won't worry about that till tomorrow.
It sounds good. It already sounds good. You know, we did all that heavy lifting with the volume, just getting the volume balance right. You know, 80%, right? It's just getting that balance. Right. Once you have that, like you're in a good spot with well-produced tracks, right? If you're getting it right at the source, if you're getting it right, if you get the songwriting right, if you're getting the arrangement right, you're getting the sound selection right, then you know that's where all the magic happens. And the mix is just kind of like oogieing things together, you know, in support of all of those decisions you made in production and songwriting. Not to drastically change anything, you know.
Are you to the point where you want me to talk about some mastering stuff, or do you want to do some more on this?
If it's okay, I'd like to do a little bit of bus processing.
Oh yeah, you want to do bus processing. Forgive me. Yeah.
Is that cool, guys? Are you guys, if you guys want to move on, we can move on. 1, if you want to see like a little bit of bus processing. 2, if you want to move into kind of like the next segment here. I
The
saw,
mastering portion won't be long, by the way. It's just
yeah, just very quick.
some tools for y'all to consider and use.
Woo, woo-wee. Hit the bus. All right. We'll go ahead. I'll make it quick. I won't spend too much time on this. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna literally like spend very little time on this. Check this out. I'm gonna put some tape on, some tape saturation on the drum bus, and I'm also gonna toss it through just the Neve.
Panel strip.
Yep. Console. That's it. That's what I'm gonna do. That's it. That's it. That's all I'm gonna do. You know what? I actually might do a little dynamics control on that too. But do you guys hear the difference there? Just a little bit of tape saturation, a little bit of console saturation, right?
Yeah, subtle.
It's very subtle. Specifically the shakers. You can hear the shakers kind of like shimmer a little bit more, kind of tickly, right?
Oh,
And there's a little bit of a low end bump happening here, right? Like super detailed. Yeah, all those details are starting to come out, right? What we can do here is see what it sounds like to just kind of glue this thing together a little bit. There's some compression for you guys. It's not making that big of a difference. I'm not even going to bother with it.
Tightening it up a little bit from like the transient tails and turned it slow. It was kind of cleaning some of that up a little bit, which I thought was nice, by the way. Very, very subtle.
Super, super subtle. Somebody asked about a transient shaper. Don't know that this is like the best avenue, but all right, there we go. There's our punch. Wanted a little bit more punch. Yeah, I don't think it's not like a dance track or anything like that. You know, I don't know. I wouldn't necessarily go that route. Just playing with some stuff. Let's do yeah, saturate. Let's clip this. And really what we're doing here is just controlling transient energy, controlling the dynamics, narrowing the dynamic range by clipping the top of the waveform. Right? Just like shaving it right off. I'm going to show you what this does for Headroom in a second. Stick with me. Okay. Check this out. Without clipping. Being at about -8. All right. And then with clipping. Speaking of -12.
Does it sound quieter?
I think probably to like a negligible degree.
Almost no difference.
Yeah.
Not 4 dB of difference sounding. There's a
If we
subtle difference,
wanted
but
to, we could adjust the output on the plugin so that it's a little bit more apples to apples, but pretty.
you saved all that headroom without changing what it perceptibly sounds like. You'll thank yourself later. We'll talk about that more tomorrow when we master it, but that's all energy that means something later if you want to take stuff to the next level on the master.
I've seen a lot of chatter in the Zoom about wanting the wood blocks turned up and panned further to the right. Is that the general consensus? Is that
what it was?
we can do that?
Where's your sense of adventure? I got a fever.
All right.
I got a fever, Jake.
Yeah.
There's some pro wood block people there.
It's fine. It's cool. You got the multi-tracks. You can put that wood block wherever you want.
This isn't Congress, though. This is the Jake Show.
All right. I'm going to take all of these processes here. This tape saturation and console emulation. And I'm just going to copy them across. I'm not even going to like think twice about it. I'm just putting this putting all of these through, these levels of saturation. I'm going to do a before and after. Check this out. Exactly. That's exactly right. That's what this does. That's what this does, man. It adds all that harmonic content and it gives that perception of depth. It just totally pulls the mix out across that Z axis, right? It's wild. It's wild. So, and it makes it taller. It makes it taller because we're adding harmonic content that is now kind of like reaching up into kind of like the tickly frequencies, right? Not just up in the air, but like in the mid range too, like that warmth that we talked about, right? You're feeling it here, you're feeling it down here. It's just adding more, right?
It's adding subtle.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Adding subtle imperfection too, which is part of what saturation is, part of what the circuitry is, part of what we like about analog is the imperfection of it. They've modeled for that now with these analog emulations. They're actually making it less perfect, but our ears love that. We love that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. It's a big difference. Here, I'll do it one more time. Start with it on and then turn it off and then back on again. Wild stuff, right, guys? Like, yeah, it's everything. It's fuller, it's more open, it's more three-dimensional, it's more depth, you know. Just with a couple plugins on each one of the buses.
You're not even really doing anything with them other than running it through their circuitry, pretty much.
That's it. That's it. Wild. Mike wants more woodblock. Cool. I think that's a good stopping point for today.
Okay, let's talk about mastering for a
Yeah,
second. I'm
I
going to
think-
give you one more tool for y'all to use as you assess the instrumentals tonight with this mix of yours. So let's go back here. So yesterday we talked about a tool that shows us frequency balance. The other thing that a mastering engineer understands is that when things are dynamically out of balance, it makes it hard to master. And this is something that we can assess and should be assessed in the mix before it gets to master. It's best to do that before. Like Warren was saying yesterday, if you had to do very little in the master, that's a good thing. It should all be done in the mix. And it's the premise of our entire teaching platform. We teach people to reverse engineer their thought process so they know the mistakes not to make so that the master can be great eventually. Again, that was what we talked about yesterday. End in mind perspective. That's what I'm talking about. So today we're going to assess dynamics. There's a tool that you can apply to your master bus in the mix that can show you transient information to see if you have anything that's out of bounds. Just so you know, if you don't know what transients are, there are these spikes. The transient is actually the whole waveform up and back down, but we're looking at the difference between the center, the quietest part, and the loudest part. A lot of people believe that a lot of people use the word dynamic wrong when they're talking about mastering, especially I'll get people all the time. They say to me, I want a really dynamic master. And I found over time that most people, that's not what they actually want. They want stuff to sound loud and punchy, but they say, I want it to sound dynamic. We actually want to control dynamics quite a lot. Controlling dynamics is really important to getting things loud and punchy. And so again, this is something hopefully we can do in the mix. If your waveform, if you bounced it for master, for example, if I got a waveform from a client to master and it looked like this, we got problems. That's a lot of different distance between the quietest parts and the big parts. That's going to be a nightmare to try to do in a mastering context. I'm going to have to do way too much work in mastering. And this is something that should be addressed in the mix. There's something in the mix that's causing those spikes in the waveform that needs to be controlled earlier than the master. So Jake's about to demonstrate with a cool plugin. I think it's free plugin, right, Jake?
Yep.
A tool that you can start using. And we're going to look at how we did today at controlling these dynamics. You noticed he used that limiter. He used the clipper, the newfangled. He was getting rid of some of those transient peaks. Let's see how well we did. Let's see if there needs to be more control actually, or not. That makes sense to everybody?
So the plugin I would like to show you is called Wave Observer
Ding, ding, ding.
by a company called Press Play.
You got it, Tuck.
What do you think it does?
A lot of times, if you don't have this plugin, you'd have to bounce it down and look at the waveform. Sometimes it's hard to hear. This will just tell us what's going on. It's a way to connect your ears and your eyes.
Yeah, it'll show you. What are those? Where are our transients coming from? Kick. Yep. What else? Yep. Claire got it. The bass. They're all hitting together. You know, all that low end energy. That's the energy that takes up the most space. Right. And it just so happens that our kick and our bass are two most low energy heavy instruments are hitting right at the same time every time. Right. So that's going to happen. I don't see anything that's necessarily out of bounds, but maybe there's something we could do with, you know, we've clipped the drums. Maybe we can clip the bass.
Let's try it.
Let's try it.
Let's at least observe it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say what we were looking at. You're always going to have like some transients. You just don't want them to be where it's extreme. That's why I showed that picture where it was like a thin little bass line and then giant peaks everywhere.
Totally. Totally. And I'm going to use a different kind of clipper on the bass. I'm going to just use a different kind called V-clip. I like the way that this visualizes what's going on. See, so it runs the waveform through the plugin, and then you can bring the ceiling down onto the peaks. Right? That's how this works. A little bit of distortion. Does it matter? Hear it over here, see if it matters. I'm gonna let it distort a little bit. I think it's fine. Sounds good in the mix. Here, see if it helped. Helped slightly. I think more of the offender is the kick. Now, so let's see if we can save even more headroom by clipping the kick even further. Let's see what we got. Couple decibels. Might be able to save a little bit more headroom if we roll off this bass. Yeah, I actually like it like that. I was kind of trying to earlier, I was trying to avoid like just chopping off all of that low end with the bass, but I think ultimately we've landed in a spot where it sounds the kick sounds a little bit more focused. Slightly, but not so obvious.
Well, it was hitting. If you were watching before, it was about 3 dB louder everywhere.
Yeah, I was like up here.
You're not at 6, so you saved 3 dB of headroom, and you didn't really change the sound at all.
Yeah, that's right. Like the lines, I forget how close, like these lines are really close together, but they're actually 3 decibels apart. Right? 9, 10, 11, 12, and this one a little bit longer. So yeah, I guess it did. Cool. All right, by me. Awesome. Awesome possum. I think that's a wrap today, guys. How you guys feeling? Any aha moments? Got some things you want to try tonight for your assignment?
I thought that was awesome.
We talked about some cool stuff today.
Oh.
That, you know, it's always different. You never know. So it's like a grab bag with these things. Never know what we're gonna.
Why people keep coming back, because we do talk about different stuff every time.
Yeah, it's cool.
So now it's your turn. Whether you're working on your own song or the one we posted in school, it's your turn to go in and just work on instruments. Don't get sidetracked with vocals. Use the tools to enhance frequencies and fix problems as you see fit. Dynamic issues. Play around with clippers, limiters. See if you can get them to do what we were doing. See if that made a difference. See if you were able to save some headroom. Control dynamics in ways that make things smoother when they need to be. And try the buckets list, right? So we had the 3 buckets. We've only worked on 2 of the buckets so far. We worked on the drum bucket and the instrument bucket, or as Jake calls it, everything else. But it's essentially like the instruments, right? A short reverb and a long reverb. So we're not doing too many things there, but enough. I hope you could hear, and maybe go back and watch through if you weren't, because we were kind of doing spatial stuff all throughout. But we were separating the instruments from the drums in a way. They weren't sounding like there was one reverb on all of them, and it was giving it a nice character and a nice separation. So play with that as well. See if you can get that masking cleared up, and then feel free to post your upgraded mix to school if you want to. If not, we'll see you tomorrow here, same time, same place. It's vocal day. It's always fun to do vocals, and excited to finish this thing off. And then we'll actually master it as well. We'll master it live. We'll finish it. We'll send it off to the client. But you guys have been great. Great questions today. Thanks for helping each other. Thanks for helping each other here in the chat and in school. Hope you have a great evening. Jake, thanks for your work. Even through COVID, you're a master of the art. Appreciate you a lot, man. And we'll see you all tomorrow. Have a good one. Peace.